All right. Achoo, achoo. This is come true.
Oh my god. As y'all could see, your boy get replaced. The man say, Fari sound fake. The man say Fari sound like the group is forcing him to say yow black is out now. And I don't know how to feel about that. He does not even come in with yow black is out now. He come with a achu. And nobody even say bless you. That's crazy. That's crazy. Anyways, let's get into that, man.
Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, you
Mm.
just can't escape the struggles that's in your family? Well, ladies and gentlemen, come true family. Today we are discussing how and we breaking down general. No. I can't talk today, man. Today we are breaking down generational curses. We're gonna talk about why it happens and give some tips on how we could go about breaking these curses. In the course of this
True.
episode, we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about why your dreams are only limited by your exposure. And we might wrap it up with how your relationships either build you up or keep you stuck.
Mm. That's a big one. That's a big one. So let's start with generational curse. For one, what is a generational curse? And I like this definition I see online. It says a generational curse describes the cumulative effect on a person of things that their ancestors did, believed, or practiced in the past, and the consequence of an ancestor's actions, beliefs, and sins being passed down for generations to come. The generational curses, it could be so many different things. It could be small things you might not even think of as a curse. It could be large. It could stem from finances to relationships to the way you treat women, the way you treat men. It could be so many different things. So, what's your thoughts? What y'all think of as a generational curse? An example that y'all could think of.
For me, the first one I'd always think about is generally the financial ones. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Because I feel like that's one of the most common conversations that's being had, especially in this era or this time in the economy where things is rough. Everybody's on this money grind. Everybody is chasing wealth. Everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants to have multiple streams of income. So now the conversation behind like the education and stuff behind it kind of comes into play. So when talking about generational curses, generally it's like, oh, a lot of the things that our parents imparted on us, the bad habits, sometimes living check to check, not knowing per se about, let's say, credit, not knowing per se about, for example, life insurance. These things go on for generations and generations, and then we find ourselves asking, like, yo, why it is we, specifically we as a black people, do not learn any of these things. And sometimes I feel like we start to rely on school for that, which, okay, does school really sit here and teach you any kind of financial literacy? Not necessarily. So I feel like we have to take it upon ourselves to essentially start to, what I would say, probably re educate ourselves. What y'all feel?
you know what my mother tell me when I was going off to college? She said, "Don't get a credit card. You're gonna end up spending all
Yeah,
of the
that's some
money
stuff.
and not being able to pay it back."
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to be fair, that happens and people do that all the time. But the lesson shouldn't have been don't get a credit card. It should have been
How
manage your
to?
finances, treat credit cards as if it's a loan, something else. It should have been a different lesson than just not to have it, because that's usually where we could first build our credit. You check.
Correct,
So
correct. Really well said, well said. I know for me, right? Before I get into my general, I would say example of a generational. I want to share with y'all like a quote that I kind of came across by Des Bryan, right? Breaking generational curses. Quit yelling at your kids before they go to bed and expect them to sleep well. Quit yelling at your kids in the morning right after they wake up before school and expect them to have a good day. You set
mm,
the tone for your children. Sorry, children. You set the tone for your voice that will always remember in their heads. You become their inner voice. don't be their inner critic. Speak life, speak love, speak bravery and kindness and hope. Speak wisdom and truth, but most of all, listen to your children. So when I was
Amen.
thinking about, that general curses, like I noticed we have this bad habit of yelling at our kids, I've been yelled at, and I know each and every one of us here can contest to being yelled at when we're smaller. But in actuality, is like we take that whole yelling when we were kids, and then we start breeding that same type of energy into our into our own kids. I have friends of mine. I don't have any kids of my own, but I've seen their parents yelling at them, and then it's easy. Like like you sit back and you watching TV, and it's like you see the parents yelling at the child, then you see the child yelling at their children, and it's just like, dude, like where does it stop? And I do think that's a really big issue. Like we talking to them, calling them stupid, you're dumb, this, that, and the third. And then and what the funny thing is, they end up picking up those same bad habits. So I know that's kind of my piece on general curses.
I,
I
I
mean,
Go ahead, Farah.
no, I was gonna say I agree. I agree a lot, and not only with yelling at the kids, but also taking away the voice of the kids. A lot of
Yeah.
parents do yell at kids, but they also don't allow their child to express their opinions in times where it may have been needed for the child, and it's not
Correct.
necessarily rude. I mean, there's a time and place for everything, time and place for all types of conversations. But growing up, regardless of what you had to say, regardless of the context, regardless of what was going on, is don't answer back, don't answer back,
Say
don't
nothing.
answer back. The moment you
Yeah.
want to answer back, it's a backhand, it's a pop in the mouth, it's something.
Front end.
So I do think it's a bad habit. I do think it's a generational curse because that's a habit that you learn, that's a habit you see from your parents, and that's a habit that's easy to pass to your children and then for them to copy and for that to continue.
I do want to ask this though, because
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, a lot of people are gonna say, for one, these children them rude. These children are rude and they're unruly, which to me is on the parents. That's neither here nor there. But they will say like you almost have to yell at these kids sometimes. So like, is there like a medium between what is too much yelling? Like, how do you kind of define what is too much yelling and what is enough like sternness, or is that just is it yelling altogether? You should just eradicate
I,
it.
I I think there is yelling is warranted in some situations. Say your child running into the road, that's a perfect time to yell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Them running into a public road, or just in a situation where they not listening at all. Like I barely yell at my kids, but when I do raise my voice, whoa, shit is
It's
serious.
serious.
Everybody stand at attention. They know it's just this. This is not a common thing. So when I do use it, it's actually effective. People that
That
tend
makes
to
sense.
scream all the
Yeah.
time, for one, that's all they respond to, and two, they just now they're taking it as your normal voice because they just hear it all the time. I think it should be used in certain situations that warrants it, but not
But
just
you
as a basic way to communicate.
But you know what's so crazy? My mom, if anybody knows my mom, right? My mom doesn't yell for anything, right? But she used to do this thing like you call it like a soft yelling, like when they pull you down, you like, listen here. It was it. That was even more effective than any yelling I used to get from my pop, like other members of my family. But it was like that soft yelling. You don't. She would whisper words, and I'm just like, yes, ma'am. Like yeah, it's just like that soft. Yeah, call it. I don't know if it's like soft yelling or that. If you really know,
Yeah, that
My auntie didn't even used to yell, dog. She used to just
come
stand
here.
still and just watch
Silence
for the
speaks loud.
longest, and then it's just awkward. You just feel awkward. You stopping whatever you're doing because you know you're doing some shit she don't like. She don't even have to speak.
that remind me of like the Liam Neeson voice that he to use in Taken when he talking to them man.
I will
I'm going
find
to
you.
wherever it is, I'm going to find you. Like it's just like a serious calm,
I
but you know,
was,
like yeah, man,
I
this
was,
man he ain't playing.
hey, for real.
Brian, you get one or any thoughts on that?
No, no thoughts on the yelling at kids, but in terms of the curses, I see we touched on what mental, emotional. You touched on a little physical. Kind of, I guess, dabbled on a little culture with a beating. But I think another thing that we could consider a curse probably be behavioral patterns, I guess, that we could pass on to our kids in terms of like addiction, abuse, codependency, violence, lying.
Mm.
Those to me all fall under like a behavioral curse that you could pass on to your kids in terms of what they see and what they grow up to perceive to be normal. So they
That's
just
true.
Oh,
bundle all of those together.
monkey
Nah,
see,
that's a
monkey
good
do.
point.
Hey, that's a really good one.
Yeah,
That's
they
a
see
really good one. And
like
one
a
I have,
baffle.
Mhm.
one I have
Oh God.
is a lot of people don't even consider it or even think of it as a generational curse, but black people time or Crucian time,
Ooh,
that
Mm.
excuse that we
cruise
use
time.
just because we black, that it's okay to be late. And I've
Mm.
seen that
Yeah.
from the oldest of the old using that shit to the youngest of the
Mm-hmm.
young. So
Facts.
it's clearly
For
passed.
real.
It's not just a one lineage thing. This is extended
Yeah.
to the culture. You check.
That's a
So
that's a
that's a
life
big
relay
one.
right there. They passing that one on hand to
Pass the torch.
hand.
And to be
That's
clear,
a torch that getting passed.
to be clear, that's bullshit, guys. That is
It is.
absolute
It is.
bullshit. Stop using that
It
shit.
is.
If you say
I
something on start at a certain time, start it at a certain time. Be the start to that shit, man. And
crazy in the
before
Be,
military, you know.
anybody,
you could be honest with yourself with that. I'd always ask people like, is it 7 or
Was it eight?
Crucian 7?
Yeah.
But you know, it's
Because
the
if you
crazy
tell me
thing.
it's Crucian 7, I know how to, how to act, how I need to function, how I
part
need
of
to
the
roll out.
problem, man. You're part of the
But you
problem.
see,
No,
the crazy thing is right. But
I
in the
leaving myself
military,
out of annoyance because if you tell me 7, I is a stickler for time, but I also acceptant to my people because that torch has been passed. You don't have to use the torch, but you have to understand it. So I mean, if you say 7 by sharp, it's 7 sharp. But if I say fire, it's 7 or 7. Depending on how you answer,
Seven
it's
is
how it
seven, dog.
operates.
7 is 7 in any situation. 7 is 7. Okay. What you gonna
7
say,
is
Kenny?
7.
it's like in the military, we have this saying that goes like, "If you early, you on time. If you on time, you late." And like, I'm not gonna lie. Ever since being in, I don't show up to places late. I hated it. It's become like a pet peeve of mine. And it's funny is I used to be the type of person who's like, yeah man, can you link up, man? At this time I'd be like, okay, I'll come 8 o'clock. If the thing is for 7, I'll show up 8 o'clock. Because that's the
Right.
norm. But now it's like you tell me 7, I did like 6:45 in my car, so pie I'm on there.
Well,
Six
shit.
forty five.
You see
Mm-hmm.
me?
Mhm.
I think I just end up going the opposite route to how my father used to be growing up because this man was late to everything. Like religiously, you could not expect this man to be late. If you had to put a bet on your life, if you have to choose somebody to be late, or else you're going to get unalived, I would be picking that man. This man would be calling friggin' the seaplane flight is for 3. He calling them at 2:45 saying he on the way, he on the road, he heading there right now. Don't leave. Shit like that. Like, come on.
Hey, we
And this
like
was
Colin
a routine.
seaplane to tell him you
Like,
on the way.
hold the
That's
Come like
like
plane.
come.
that's crazy.
Hold the plane. That's ranks. That's
Yeah, that's
ranks.
right.
No,
Fuck.
serious, serious.
But we
Hold the
talking about
plane.
we talking about generational courses. Of course, we have to acknowledge the fact that they're hard to break. You know what I'm saying? Like we're talking about it loosely, and it's very easy to have the conversations around it. Is our next thing to be able to actually go out here and put forth the steps to make sure that the course ends in whatever generation of you, the listeners, are in. You know what I'm saying? So, what are some things that you guys think are like the steps to be able to begin at least breaking these generational curses?
No, we gonna let you go first this time.
Say
We're
less.
gonna let you go first.
For me, I think one of the best things for one is part of and like what we're doing here is the awareness. Is
Mm-hmm.
being able to identify like, yo, what I am doing or my behaviors or my habits are counterproductive to where I'm trying to go. So I need to be
Mhm.
able to identify these things, acknowledge it. Hey, I know I can't be too hard on myself because it has come down from family. Somebody have to have conversations with family as well to even figure out that look, this was something that we always doing. You know what I'm saying? So I would say awareness is the first step to even begin to say, all right, we're going to tackle some of these things.
And
Okay,
after
okay.
that awareness, it's intentional actions.
Mm.
Intentional actions is what we need to be incorporating. If we have issues with gambling, we intentionally making the opposite moves so that we stray away from it. We stop gambling altogether. We stop encouraging it. We even in situations like that, sometimes you doing a good job at relaying the appropriate actions, but family members might not. So sometimes even stepping back from family is what you might have to do. You have those conversations, they still ain't listening, they still ain't making adjustments, at least around your kids, so that they don't grow up and see that and think that's normal behavior. Kind of have to step back at times. Check. That
Mm.
goes for friends as well, not just family.
That was a good
I
point,
would,
one, my Fari.
I was just saying, like, I feel like you take my thinking is like being a better example. I was just like, well, no, but I would say it's just like, I would say it's like be an example to your kids. I mean, like, you know, be the change that you want to see. If I know I have a history of certain bad habits or bad patterns, I would say is being aware, putting for those such intentions would now lead me to know implementing at this point. So actually implementing those set of opposite behaviors. So children is what they see is what they're gonna do. If you pick up a beer bottle to go drink, you see your kid in the background, you're like, yeah, it's gonna be just you know, you know, be that role model. Put forth those awareness intentions and actually implement the solution.
Brian.
Brian, you got anything?
One that could us, I guess, envelop all of y'all points will just be because it's not that easy. Seek help, get guidance.
Mm,
Seek out somebody who is the opposite or what you want to be, what you envision yourself. How outside of the norm. Like all of you guys hit on those points. To fire about being intentional, cutting away from family. Deshaun being aware, get help from somebody, get guidance, from somebody outside your circle, an example, a role model, a mentor, like what I always be telling you guys to get seek that. You know,
Facts.
that's one of the
And
best ways to break that cost. Seek what you want in somebody else who's already accomplished that and latch on to them, learn from them. That's a
and
great way
also
for me.
part of seeking help, because sometimes these curses can run really deep and you just seem to
Mm-hmm.
not be able to break it. Part of seeking help could also be seeking therapy or seeking professional help if it relates to finances, with financial literacy, taking courses, things like that. But I
Fact.
do want to give a quick small story in how this person I saw on TikTok did incorporate and put into action changing a generational curse that she considered to be a generational curse. So this was a Asian lady, and as we know, I don't know if any of y'all have Asian friends or have been around Asian people or know some of those Asian stereotypes about parents or how strict they could be. But in Asian culture, they tend to not be as gooey, as affectionate and showing that affection through loving type things that we would consider like hugs or saying I love you and things like that. So
True.
her situation was no different. And she's older now, but her parents, obviously they're even older. They about to meet the end, say next 10, 15 years. So she just came with the right idea. I want to start saying I love you. I just want to start saying I love you, and I'm gonna start with my parents. So her mother, they do, even though they're not lovey dovey, they talk on the phone every day. So this one
Mm.
time they're on the phone with her mother, and they're having a conversation, just the normal updates on your life and things like that. And she asked the question like, "Mom, being terrified, the little girl in her screaming, how do you feel about us saying I love you to each other?" And have a long awkward pause because this is a weird ass question. What is going on? It's just, and she here freaking
Fact.
out inside. But eventually, after the long pause, the mom said, I think I would like that. And then she went on to the father. She passed the phone to the father. She asked the same thing. He said, okay. She said, after she hung up that phone, well, not what, obviously, conversation ending.
Yeah.
So it's now time to say, I love you. And next awkward pause because both of them realize that the conversation is ending. I love you, mommy.
Hey, Mac.
Or I love you, mom. And she repeat, she after that awkward silence again because this is something you breaking through in the moment. The mom said, I love you too. Then she passed to the father, same thing. And then a week later, after having a conversation with her father, he said first, I love you. And the crazy thing about that is that her father, he can't even remember what he did the day before. He can't remember what he did an hour before. His memory is going and is doing very fast. But a week later, this man remembered to say, I love you. And she is a neuroscientist that works with something in the brain. I forgot the exact term of what it is. But
Mm.
it was even more impactful to her because she understood that something like that, the reason he could remember it is because it went so deep. It became a
Mm,
core memory at his old age because it was just something that deep. And that was the beginning of her breaking the curses for her children and the grandchildren to come. And I think that was just such a touching story. Though so
impactful.
simple, very touching.
That
Impactful.
that's facts. That's facts. Great story. Since we're talking about generational curses, one of the things that generational curses affect essentially is the who you are, your identity. And I saw it somewhere that most of us don't even know who we are because we were taught who to be. And when
Hmm.
I yeah, that's a crazy bar. And when I talk about that, I'm speaking about like the societal's expectations versus your family pressure, family pressure to go in this direction, pressure to go in that direction. Yeah, and just general identity struggles, especially now in the social media era where you consuming so many different things, and then tack on to that whatever generational curses that has been passed down to you. Could be hard. It could be hard to like really have your own sense of identity. I almost feel like, hey, I have to be in this box maybe because of this person, or my mom said this, or this is the trend that's going on. How you guys feel about that? Like figuring out your identity, figuring out who you are.
Hmm. Man, figuring out your identity comes with stepping out of some of those boxes, to be honest. Like with me, growing up, I always saw my older brother as a golden child. Oh my gosh, my parents love him. This is who I have to be like to get that type of love from my parents. You check. So growing up, I chased in this man's footsteps for almost everything he did. He was in steel pan. I went in steel pan. I ended up loving steel pan, but he um went to magnet program at complex. I went to magnet program at complex. He was salutatorian. I happened to end up being salutatorian. He went on to mechanical engineering in college. I went on into to mechanical engineering in college. And it was in college that I was like, damn, I kind of want to be a civil engineer. And I'm not damn mechanical engineer. This ain't fun to me. But at that point, I was done at UF, and being that I transferred, they say you can't switch in between colleges. You have to stick within the college that you're in. So that's where it ended up being. I now doing civil engineering related work, and I also found my space and what I enjoy doing. He enjoyed doing designing. I kind of more enjoy the management side of things. So it but it came for me actually realizing that, yo, what am I chasing right now? What am I chasing? I I am loved by my parents just as much. I had this whole story in my head growing up, thinking that this is what I needed to do to get that type of attention. But the attention was always there. I just made up something in my head and just found things that would agree with that story. And it took me just reflecting in college, realizing I don't want to do this damn degree, struggling through this shit to be like, man, time for me to start stepping into my own boxes, doing things that I like, start doing photography and things like that, start just stepping out my boxes, you check. And it always, I feel like it always starts with self-awareness and looking inward. You check.
True.
I guess for me, when I view finding your identity, it's when you look at how your parents set a certain set of a path for you, you
Mm,
tend to conform to that path. And I think one of the biggest things that I realize is it's hard to kind of come off that path to say that I'm going to come out that box to find my own because I guess fear of, fear of failing. And one of the biggest things I struggled with was I don't want to fail. I didn't view the path that they gave me was a means to, I didn't see, I mean, I didn't see love or the desire for them to see me succeed is like, I'm telling you this shit for your own good, but in the back of my mind, it kind of created like resentment, It's like, I feel like I'm out of like control, and I guess for me, it's only like joining the military. I guess I see it, I see it now, I understand it now, but back then it was just more of a, I guess it kind of forced me to want to be a rebel, like, no, I'm trying to find my own self, but at the same time, I know what I want, but this is what I had to do. So I guess it could kind of create like a feeling like, yeah, I'm this person. Am I really this person? I'm only that person because of what they tell me I should be. You know? If that makes sense.
true. I want to ask you a quick question. Both of us has been in the military. I will go as far as to say you still in. So I don't know if you can even speak on this. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, but
But if
listen,
you
listen,
can,
listen.
I would go as far as to say that a part of the military system is to almost implement a system that makes you conform to a part of your identity really then becomes the military to a certain extent. Like, have you run into people or have you ever felt like, yo, do I have identity even without outside of just being a soldier, of being a sergeant, of being like a representative of America? Because we know there's certain things you can't even do or say you get in trouble. You ever thought
Mm.
about that aspect of it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Um, but I think what I've learned, not one of those like the military trying to brainwash me, but what I've gained to understand, and I think it's when I have had I'm in charge. I'm at that position now where I'm in charge of certain set individuals. Being a supervisor. We have a term called like LPO, which is your leading petty officer, right? I
Mhm.
think it's a matter of reframing your perspective, aligning certain set goals. I do think we do have that option and ability to have our own identity, but first we need to first understand that, hey, this is who you are, this is who what the Navy is, and this is what we're trying to align to reach. I know some people may think like you're getting like conformed to military ways. I think there are certain habits we do pick up, but at the end of the day, it's more of a matter of framing your perspective on things.
True. Brian, what you got?
Based off of what you and Kenrick was speaking about, I do agree in terms of I've been like because I've been around you guys when you first got into the military, and I would say the military definitely carved out a piece in your identities. You started to assimilate and identify, and I think as you guys grew into yourselves and into your military careers, you could see the clear distinction of who Deshaun Webb was and who Ken Campbell was as people separate from the military. But on entry, you could see what the military was trying to take over. But
Push.
I see the growth from you guys and how that has been separated. But in terms of the identity being, I guess, chosen for you in terms of how we grew up, I can really see it being harder because I can only speak for how we grew up in the black
Mm,
family in the Caribbean black families, and sometimes I believe that these paths were set for us because they believed that was always best for us, not because they were trying to really choose our identities, but because they felt like if they did that, then because of certain things or mistakes they made in their lives in their own way. They were probably trying to be, this is the path, and they need you to stay on this path because if you come off this path, I'm worried that you may fail, and I don't have all the tools and skills to help you if you fail. But in instance of like what Fari spoke about, I feel like a lot of us black young Caribbean folk tend to find our identities more so now through separation from our families. Like when we get to go off and branch off on our own to see if, okay, is this the path I truly want to be on that was carved out for me, or do I want to dabble in something else? Because sometimes through the fans, you may think like what Kendrick was saying, like this isn't the path I want to be on, so you swerve, and then you realize after you swerve, you don't really like it on the bumpy side, and you swerve back and you realize that the path you were on was the right path, but you needed to choose that for yourself in order to get to that path because it was your choice. You check, so that's something like Fari, it seemed like he swerved a little bit. He ain't really wanted to be in it, but the magical thing about life put him in the right position. So I feel like for us, getting away or stepping outside the box, especially with some family, spending some time with on your own, whether in the military, in college, or just traveling abroad, or just simply just moving out of the nest, is a true way to, if you didn't have that kind of, family growing up where you could just do what you wanted and to find yourself at a younger age. Most of us in the Caribbean tend to find ourselves in our older teens or early 20s through the act of separation or, going out, leaving the nest. So that's
You
my
brought up some,
spiel on that.
yeah, you brought up some real good points. I want to speak on a little bit about the societal pressures,
Mm-hmm.
and I think now that we have so much social media and so much internet in general available to us, I think the one big thing that I want people to realize from what I've been taught is we have to remember that these social media platforms are also advertising platforms, meaning every brand, whether it be a person selling themselves, a person selling an idea, a company selling a product, no matter what it is, everybody is advertising and trying to get you to buy into something, whether that be a lifestyle, whether that be a product, whatever feeds their profit, essentially. I'm gonna use my personal example where it's like I always tell people like I'm not a big person that's into cars. Like, I don't really give too much a shit what I drive for the most part. I've been driving my Beetle for a while now, you know what I'm saying? But I bring up that example to say if I go on the internet, I'm going to see advertisement and advertisement of the baddest car, of this car. I'm gonna have how much ever YouTubers showing off their life in their Lamborghini. And then it become real easy to start to convince myself that I want a lot of these things. You know what I'm saying? Like you on the internet seeing so much things, and then sometimes you get into it and realize you don't want it. It kind of goes back to what Fari was saying earlier with being you have to be self-aware a lot. You know what I'm saying? So you don't fall for some of the traps because society gonna want to say, even like the 9 to 5 versus entrepreneur push right now. It's like everybody, oh, be an entrepreneur, be an entrepreneur. Like that's how they kind of push it way harder. Like, but the reality is, everybody is not meant to be an entrepreneur. You know what I'm saying? Like that's unrealistic. Some people just prefer to be the 9 to 5 guy or lady. But if you go on the internet, you almost feel like you might start to feel like you're lesser if you don't go pursue that space. So that just kind of goes back to just the different things that could kind of affect you and who you are as a person that later on, like Brian was explaining, when you get into different spaces you might later discover like, man, what the hell was I doing for this whole time? But I note I do want to share, I guess we had kind of two actionable items that could help you kind of identify your identity. I think the first one Fari says was self-awareness, so I'll expand that a little bit. You already know, you should know already what I'm about to say is the greatest tool in helping yourself become self-aware.
Life
Ladies
coach.
and gentlemen, you got a journal, man. Yeah, again, that journal. All right. It does not have to be every single day. I do not write in my journal every single day, but you have to get in this journal. As a matter of fact, some of my TikTok videos and stuff are essentially like a part of my journaling. Just
Mm.
telling the experience that I have. Journaling is not exclusive to writing. It can be video, it can be a recording yourself. But I think journaling is one of the best ways to at least tackle being self-aware. I'm not sure if there's too much actionable items for breaking out your identity, but I know
I have
Brian
one.
shared one. Go
Um,
ahead.
I'll start by saying this simplest statement we hear it all the time as kids. You are who you want to be. I would start there. You could choose who you want to be. So follow your wants. If you want to be something and you're not currently that, start practicing things that that person you want to do will be, or what a person you want to be would do. Start making those actions. Like, start small. You could start as small as you want, and just continuously every day make active steps, active decisions to do stuff that the person you want to be will do. And slowly but surely you would realize that, whoa, I am now him. You check. So that's the next one. You could sculpt anybody you want to be. You are who you want to be. You could switch up who you want to be, and you could become that person over repetitive actions.
I'll be
Greg,
honest.
Greg. Yeah, about to say, can you look like you've been thinking hard?
I've been thinking hard. I don't know. I mean, I don't want piggyback. I don't want this the thing, but I just think it's like most of our goals are based off of your wants. So maybe start. I would say start coming up with more affirmative. Speak. Like death and life is in the tongue. So speak positivity into your life. So if it's like if you want to be fit, so become the person that goes to the gym. If you want to
Right.
make money, be the person that's going to take those steps to make money, hustle. So I mean, I think by doing that, you're going to create your own personal idea. I mean, that's all I get. Is like, all right, pretty much
The
took
man
And if
say,
you
everything I
have
want.
no idea who you want to be at all, step out your comfort zone, man. You might
hold
land on
on,
something
hold
that you
on.
freaking like.
You couldn't
Sorry,
let
you
Brian
about
talk
to
about
say
that
that?
one?
What happened?
That you could let Brian say that. That's kind of what he said
Yeah.
when he give his take. You
I'm
Wait,
hijack
sorry,
the
Brian.
man.
man.
Wait, what
I'm
Brian
sorry,
said?
man.
Oh,
Now that's what Brian was saying. You got to get out the box. You gotta get out the box.
Listen to
Go
me.
ahead, Brian. Talk your shit, man. That man try. That man try
out of the box.
suppress you.
Yeah, man. They talking about all this listening and taking heed, but ain't here when I jump in the gyms and then what? You know what I'm saying? Moving on, moving on.
Yeah, that's funny, dude. That's funny.
Yeah, you
That's
want to
funny.
expand at all, or we could move.
Now let me move, man.
All right.
I'm sorry,
So
man.
adding on and what Far right now and Brian was saying, they were speaking
Mhm.
on getting outside of the box and trying different things. I think it was Far right that actually sent this to us. Go ahead and say the saying, Far right.
Mm. You can only dream at the size of your experience.
One more time for them, man. One more time
You
for them, man.
can only dream at the size of your experience.
And what do you mean by that?
All right. And what we mean by that is the more you expose to, the broader your dreams can become. The more absurd it could sound to somebody that has been in a small exposure point. The smaller your exposure, you're not going out there, you're not seeing the world, you're just staying in your room after school growing up, you're doing absolutely nothing. Your perspective and what you could dream or you could even think of being a possibility is going to stay within that space that you've been exposed to. Sometimes your your greatest limitation, your greatest hurdle is your parents' limitations because
Mm.
they weren't exposed to shit. And they don't necessarily dream big. They're more so small thinkers, not as an insult, but they content with it, but they didn't dream that far because they wasn't exposed to something greater to even want something greater for themselves. And it could be passed on to you. get exposed to high school.
I will give a well first. Go ahead, Kenny. Go ahead, Kenny. Go ahead, Kenny. Go ahead.
I feel like I feel that that's of your of that dream of that I do think double-edged sword in a way, you know. So then I feel like exposure could kind of squash or even limit that dream just as much as lack of exposure. So I feel
Mm.
like it can create certain pressures that's like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, but in fact,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you're trying to be a jack of jack of many trades, but a master of none, or even not even a master of a single one. So I also think when I heard you say that, is like, yeah, you could be exposed to every single thing or have that exposure, but then at the same time, I think it could just do as much damage than it would as
Let me shoot
good.
right through that statement you just made, Kendrick.
Go
Grang,
ahead,
grang, 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 grang. All right. A jack of all trades, but a master of none will always be better than a master of one. That is the actual saying.
Watch.
That's the actual saying.
Yes,
You
but
will
I
get
don't think he was
exposed to
So,
more.
his.
so
He was
the point that was
actually
just
meaning that. Sorry.
Huh?
the point that was just the exposure in detrimental. So add to that.
Okay, well, exposure. I don't think that exposure. I don't necessarily think that it can be. Technically it can be if you're exposed to the wrong things.
Okay.
Obviously, if you're exposed to the wrong things, your horizon could be broad and your goals could go towards wine shit. You could want to be the baddest drug dealer in the world due to the type of exposure you want. And so I do think that exposure does come with intentionality behind what direction you want to go in. I mean, everything really has to have intentionality behind it. You don't want to be a criminal, then don't expose yourself to criminal spaces.
Well, you don't expose yourself to criminal spaces, but if that's what you have, that's the only thing you could
If
go
that's your
based off of.
environment, it's different being in the
So,
area where you
so I was gonna say quality of exposure is what really matters then.
okay, that's a good way to put it. Your quality of
Quality.
exposure, because you could be in an area that's surrounded by crime, but you expose yourself to a lot more things. You're not directly exposing yourself to that specific thing. You're not actively joining a gang. You're not actively doing those stuff to expose yourself to that type of level of negativity. It might be
But
in your area, but it's not that you the what brand your facial expressions is distracting me right now, so I don't need you to speak up, dog.
I
Speak
think
up.
I think you opening yourself to the comments from people. Can you hear me?
Well, let's hear
Yeah.
it. Yeah, we can hear you.
I think you
I,
opening up
I
yourself
know Brian
for the
coming with this.
comments
I know
as
Brian going
somebody
with
who
this. Yeah.
definitely grew up
I
in
know Brian going.
privilege and didn't grow up in a hood. That's exactly what
Let
you
me
sounding like.
hear you, brother.
Systematic
You're
limitations, right?
making
Right,
it
Brian?
you're making it seem yeah, you're making it seem so easy to avoid your environment. Like walking to school, I couldn't avoid it. Walking home, if I didn't actively want to be involved in these environments, but guess what? The barman them and the so-called thug and the drug slingers, they used to sling on the park. I want to go outside and play because there's a child. I couldn't actively avoid it. I used to see it. I used to play around it.
That
I
was your
didn't have
lens.
no choice.
But my question to you then,
Them
Brian.
same man who's slinging and shooting, some of them were gang, but there was absolutely no way for me to avoid it. If I come outside my house, it's there. If I inside my house, it's there. So
Question for you.
you can make a statement that I understand what you mean in a fire, but I think you're digging a little too deep. And listening.
Question for you. When you was walking out
And listening.
exposed to the drug man them, the bad man them, you ever went over to them and say, I could have a gun? You ever they ever come to you, ask you to join whatever group they're part of, and you say yes. They were ever selling drugs, and you was like, "Hey, give me 10 kilos and let me sell too."
Fari,
No, you weren't, because you made the
you think that's
decisions
how
not to allow the environment
it
that
works?
you were surrounded by to
You
affect
think
you to that
if
level.
they wanted you, no, that choice, Fari. Some people, nobody gonna come to you and say, "Hey, you wanna join us?"
No.
No, Fari. Dying how would work. Some of these
Well,
environments, if they think about
obviously,
you,
that.
Nah,
you wanna come
Fari, because
outside, this is what you gonna gotta do. Nobody coming up to you that, oh, you wanna sell
My point is, Brian,
you making it seem like it's a funny thing. Like, nah. Like when
I'm
I was
not making it seem like it's funny. I'm making it
small,
seem like
no
you say
bullshit.
you was exposed, you was
Yeah,
around this,
saying that
Brian, but you're
it
not
was
this.
police. I remember when my captured literally stupid. Them I used to give we bullets to pop with vice script, but because you don't, you not,
who
you don't
who
expose
preaching?
to it as a bad thing. It come out like this is my neighbor, and you don't thinking about it in a negative norm. You don't think of it as negative. It's your norm. Your norm, Farai, was growing up in a nice two-family household, going to steel pan practice, having a nice taekwondo practice, going home to a square meal. That ain't a lifestyle for everybody. That was the environment that you were brought up in, so you could talk so humbly and say, "Oh, it's that easy." It's fucking not.
I never
It's
said
not.
once in my life
So
that
I
is
ain't
that
gonna be
easy.
here saying, yes, I agree
I
with you in terms
never
of, yeah, you
said
got to.
once in my life is that easy. And
Wow, Fire,
and something
everything
that
you said was an implication of
no,
how easy
no,
it
no,
was.
no, no.
Stay,
You adding
stay away
words to
from it.
what I saying.
Avoid it.
Hold
Some
up,
people don't have the
hold up,
option to do that.
hold up, hold up. And this is
People are
something I
gonna play
want
it back.
all the listeners
Ding
to
ding ding
hear
ding ding ding
right
ding ding.
now. This is a saying
Listening
that
to
I
you.
want you to keep for the rest of your life. Nobody ever said it would be easy. Nobody, and this applies to every challenge that you ever experience. It applies to life. Nobody, just like I never said, nobody ever said it would be easy. Nobody, nobody. You say you was exposed to that environment, Brian. You are not a criminal. All right. So don't talk to me about that shit. All right. A lot of people exposed to that environment, Brian, does not become criminals.
What about the other
I
lad?
understand. No, I understand
They're gonna
people
show
come
Okay,
for
what
from a
about the
themselves.
lot
other
of
lad?
The
struggle to check.
comments are
I
gonna
understand a lot
speak
of
for
people,
themselves.
and the biggest thing, and this is why it's important to have guidance. It's why it's important to
Uh-huh.
have adults in your life to guide you and to direct you and channel you away from that type of negativity. Because it's easy to it could be easy for some to go in that direction.
But what
Because
about the others
sometimes
that's
that's
not?
who care about you. Sometimes that's the money you could get. Sometimes it looks appealing. You check, but I'm
That's the only
saying
choice.
Don't make us feel about not being easy.
well,
So it's
that
easy
is
to make
not the only
the
choice you
wrong
have.
choice, but hard to make the right. And you confusing me. You
No,
confusing
no,
me.
no. I said for
You said
some
it
it
easy
can
to
be
make the wrong
easy.
choice.
No, for some it could be
Uh-huh.
easy for them to make that choice, like Kenrick said, because it feels like it's the only choice. Though it's not, it could feel like it's the only choice. So they feel like that's what they have to do. So for them,
Mm-hmm.
it's a no-brainer from their perspective to go down that road.
All right.
Anyways,
Let me
I
let's
agree.
reel it back in.
yeah,
Can
let me
you
reel this back in a little bit because I feel like this went left. This fuck went left. Great discussion. And I actually think this
That's
opens
a
the door.
generational course.
Mm. Hey, there you go. There you go.
But I feel now after hearing a little bit of this discourse, I feel we should have a part about like how much choices you have when it comes to growing up in certain environments. We'll do that. But I want to reel it back in. The
Mhm.
point of what we was trying to get at, I believe, was
I think you
you need to put yourself out there so you can see that there's more opportunities.
Yes.
And to wrap it up, I'll use my personal experience in which I would say now that I am pretty financially literate. I
yes.
do make mistakes and stuff still often, but a lot of the things I've learned was not things that I learned from my family. And I'm saying I'm actually in a position right now to be able to give back and teach my family a lot of the stuff I've learned. And the reason I've learned some of these things is because I was exposed to a lot more individuals who were doing different things. Thank God for the military. The military gonna show you with John from Arkansas who own 100-acre ranch. They're gonna show you like damn, I was just about to say a very controversial thing. It's going to show
Don't think,
you
don't think.
Xiao Li from China, who has a whole different culture. It's going to show you different people, right? And because of this, I'm able to say, hey, I learned about life insurance, so now I have life insurance. I learned about investing in stocks, so now I know about investing in stocks. I learned what even simple things like not even have to be like progressive things, just things in general. I learned about tri-tip. I never know what tri-tip and brisket and them things was. As y'all know, we don't really eat them things in the Caribbean too much unless you're around that.
Oxtail. Only
What's
oxtail.
straight tip?
You see, exactly.
What's straight tip?
It's another part of the cow.
You know my life.
You know what I'm saying?
Tip.
But the point of the matter is, yeah, sometimes you have to be intentional. If you know you're having a lot somewhere, you want to try to put yourself in different rooms to be able to learn different things and apply different things to help beat generational curses, to help reframe identities and those things. You want to put yourself in different rooms. You want to experience a whole bunch of different things. How do you start to increase that exposure? It's probably the
All right.
question a lot of people
Before
That,
Brian,
that's a,
I mean,
a good
let me
question.
go. Let me
Yeah,
go
yeah, go
before.
Kendrick.
Let
like.
me go, just in case. Just in case. Yeah.
Go ahead, go
No,
ahead.
man. I would say one of the things that kind of to answer your question, Web, is like create the opportunity. We are part of a platform. We are in certain roles that where we can provide a certain impact. I think by having a small window of opportunity, providing a small window of opportunity, I think you can really, really, really make a change. And we could be the change that we want to see. Whether it may be mentorship, providing guidance, even 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 I would say even just using this platform to provide awareness and different resources that we can use. I apologize.
Hey,
Not
sorry,
you, bro. It's
Aliens.
not you.
Aliens, if you're wondering
Web your
why we
ass.
must not laugh at, I just put some in the chat. I won't say it on air, but yeah. There we go,
Back to you,
Kendrick.
Kendrick. We were listening. Sorry, that just
No,
catch,
but
catch me
it
off
caught me
guard.
off guard. It catch me off guard too. So I was just like, wow. But yeah, man, just create that window of opportunity, man. And I think that would be the big key takeaway for us. Actionable steps. Create that window.
And I guess I'll go. Out for what it looks like for younger individuals, what it looks like for the student in school. What it looks like is you joining clubs, you going to join different clubs. When we were going to school, they had racketry club, they had different types of clubs. Steel pan was free, and the bus would drop you home after. You didn't have to worry about somebody picking you up. I never been in an after school program that wasn't free. So and most schools do offer free programs to be a part of, and I think that's a great way for kids to get exposed. Similar in college, that's also a great way. Join different clubs, join different groups, and get yourself exposed to different areas. It don't have to be something you necessarily fully interested in. Step out your comfort zone. um for adults, what that looks like, sometimes it might cost money. Now you outside of school and shit, but
Mm.
do different courses, um go to different groups, try different things, try new activities. You might again land on something that might stick, or you might want to continue with something and then become damn near an expert at it because you enjoy it so much. Just try things, explore, travel the world.
Bill Nye, I think it was, says everyone you meet will know something you don't.
Hmm.
Mm.
Networking is one of the most powerful things you can do. One of the most powerful things you can do is network.
I
And
need you
on
to
top
repeat that one more time though, Web, because that was a very nice thing you just said.
of
With
the
a
quote from Bill Nye,
Yeah, the quote.
everyone you meet will know something
Fari.
you don't.
Mhm.
I probably said it a little different that time, but
Yeah, I love that.
No, I think you
Yeah,
said
Same,
the
man.
same.
Same,
Yeah.
same concept.
One more time so
exactly.
people know. You say
Everyone, everyone,
I love
hear me now, people.
it.
Everyone you meet will know something you don't. But real talk, you have to go out here and network, man. Use the opportunity when you go into these rooms, when you put yourself in these positions, like my co-hosts are speaking on. Use the opportunity to network. And a lot of people just think network is just, hey, what's going on? Blah 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 blah. No, like actually have meaningful, intentional conversations with the people that you are meeting, with the intention of trying to learn something new about them so that they could be able to give you the gain that you want to get. I always tell
Yeah.
people like when you're doing stuff, voice it. Do not ever hold it. I know people scared to, oh, I'm gonna lose the blessing. Bro, this is real life, bro. You could have a conversation in a bar with a man. This man like your idea, and now you have your next investor.
Mm, true.
If you
Right.
have a good plan behind what you are doing, talking out your plan is not going to magically, oh, now my plan gonna be ruined. That's not how real life to work, yo. A conversation could change your life. One conversation could change your life.
Yep.
So go out here and be intentional about networking, be intentional about exposing yourself. Fari doing that. So it looked like he got one more thing to say.
No, no, I
Brian,
don't
want to
have
say
one more thing
something?
to say. But what I
Oh,
was going to ask you is give us an example on how you would approach somebody to start your networking conversation.
Okay. So it depends on where I'm at.
he gonna be
So
like, "Who's your football team?"
that's a good example.
Oh,
Like I in the bar as a man that I always ask, like if you in a bar watching football, hey yo man, what's your football team, man? Yo man, you look like you just start a random commission. Hey, where you from? Simple. Now that takes a little bit of social skills. So for the people who are not that social to do it randomly, you could also go into specific groups that's targeted towards something that you're trying to get into, and literally go in there and just have some humility and say, hey, I am trying to learn about this. I'm trying to learn about whatever it is. In the chat, can anyone sit and explain a few things to me? I guarantee you, like, there's people out here that's willing to just give up game, willing to teach you new things. Even when you're traveling, like traveling is so important. Like when I went to Mexico, man, I was out there with a cowboy hat, long sleeve shirt, belt, and some boots. And I'm talking to these people, like, hey, why you do this? Like, how is this? How long you been living here? Like, where you work? Like, I'm just
mm,
asking them random questions, and just through some of my curiosity, they become curious and ask me back questions. And I was like, oh damn, this dude genuinely like wants to know about like our culture. He trying some of the food, whether or not they're good, like he's trying, so they're more willing to divulge information. This one dude, by the end of the trip, he trying to take us to his 100-acre ranch to go play in the river. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh
you
yeah.
just have to be
mm-hmm.
intentional about these things. I think Kenny, you had one more thing, and then I'll close us up.
No, I was just adding on to what you were saying. I didn't really have anything.
With that, the key takeaways general, I keep saying general, dog.
Generational.
Generational curses are real, but you can indeed break them. Your
Definitely.
identity is yours to define, not anybody else's, not your family, not society, yours to define. And you can only dream as big as what you've been exposed to. So go and try to get some more exposure.
Don't forget quality of exposure.
Quality. Go and get quality exposure before I end up in big
Quality
argument
of exposure.
about the
Don't
whole
forget
and
Kenyan
gone man
statement.
and 10 kilos and them kind of thing. With that, man, all
Do
right.
you want to say 10
What's up,
kilos?
man?
And with that, guys, like Pops always say, peace over the heart.